Welcome back to Market on Close. Bitcoin lower today, about 4% as its big bounce runs into apparently the force of an overall risk-off session. Scott Bauer, CEO of Prosper Trading Academy, watching BTC, of course. Scott, just a brief pause for this big bounce back in Bitcoin, or will it be at risk of getting washed in with any broader selling?
You know, really interesting here, Oliver, because you had two catalysts that really launched this thing. One of them was the news about Amazon, which has been somewhat, I guess, a spokesperson said that it's not true, or maybe it's true. That was number one. But number two, and a lot of people aren't aware of this, but this last week's expiration, so last Friday's Bitcoin expiration, was the largest short squeeze in the history of Bitcoin. According to Arcane Research, $750 million worth of shorts were liquidated. So could that have been triggered by the Amazon news? Yes. But you had two major things here, that really accelerated this move to the upside. Now, seeing Bitcoin trade off 3-4% today, absolutely, that's not out of the question, given a little bit of risk off here. 35,000, as you and I talked about last week. That was the area that I wanted to get in on the upside. That's the area that I'm going to get out to the downside also. So to me, that's pivot point.
Okay, so Scott, how do you kind of structure these approaches or timing? Is there a certain clearance you want to get from that pivot point? You say, okay, I'm going to execute the trade here?
Yeah, I mean, right now, I've got to stop in just underneath there at like the 34.8 level. So Could it bounce around there? Could it hover around there? Yes. But so far, that area has been, pretty good in terms of a pivot.
Okay. Now, Scott, if we do get another bounce, if that serves as support here for Bitcoin, what do you look for in terms of upside potential on this?
Well, everyone's looking at that $40,000 number, which is really just a round number. It's not, anything significant in terms of support resistance. Okay. Really 42 to 42.5 is the next number here.
I'm with you there.
I think it's going to be awfully difficult to get to that number here. But, let's see what happens with Powell tomorrow. Let's see what happens with GDP report at the end of the week. There's all this talk, and you and I have talked about this for years about what sort of correlation there is between Bitcoin and the dollar and other, macroeconomic factors here. And I did a little study here, and it's hard to say that Bitcoin has a direct correlation to the dollar, whether you want to be the ultimate believer in store of value, limited amount of coins out there or not. It's very hard to come up with that relationship. However, if you look at Bitcoin, its relationship with inflation measures, it's a lot more correlated. And that's something that we're going to see the rest of this week here. We're going to get a lot of important numbers. Yeah,
we're going to get a lot. We've got FOMC tomorrow, of course, GDP, and we saw the consumer confidence number this morning was pretty solid, but then we had durables miss, we had new home sales miss yesterday. Scott, what do you think of in terms of the potential for that narrative to come back with inflation around Bitcoin? It's been my view, and I think the market pretty much supports that it's been in tatters for months now. I mean, since we had this epic pullback right in time for some hot inflation, bounce in gold. But what if there's convexity in Bitcoin, right? I mean, it's not inflation that Bitcoin wants. It's like crazy, chaotic hyperinflation. Even though it doesn't look like we're getting that, I guess in theory, I don't know, maybe it's still a possibility.
Yeah, I agree with you on that, and I don't think the numbers are going to show this hyperinflation. I think we are going to get a really hot GDP. We are going to get a hot GDP number. However, I think when we get that and we look into the micro, we delve into that on the micro end of it, there's going to be a lot of belief out there that we're at the top, or that we've already reached the top in terms of growth, in terms of GDP, CPI. So I think that's actually going to be a negative for Bitcoin here, even if we get a really hot number.
Got it. I like that. And that's an important point, right? Because there is a convexity, I guess, the way to describe it, where inflation, moderate inflation, inflation that the Fed has to move to stamp out, none of those are the right inflation for Bitcoin. There's one inflation. Right. It is like chaotic, destructive inflation that nobody can stop.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And you still have to remember, right? There's no earnings reports on Bitcoin, right? There's no fundamental triggers that we know of yet that have really been proven over time. So it's really difficult to come up with this fundamental analysis about where this thing is going to go.
Yeah.
There is still, we're talking 3-4 years that this has been trading, not 10, 15, 30 years of historical data.
Absolutely. Okay. Good reminder. Scott Bauer, nice thoughts here. A nice little hiatus from our Apple focus, but we got to get back to it now. Scott, CEO of Prosper Trading Academy.
Thanks, Oliver.
Thank you, Scott.